This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Do you play FanDuel and feel like you aren't creating consistent money-making lineups? Go over to the DFS Doctors on Twitter at the DFS Doctors and DM them with promo code Detroit Sports to get a free trial for their analytically formulated 70% lifetime profit rate NFL and NBA lineups. The whole purpose of playing daily fantasy sports is to get out there and compete and give yourself a chance to win. So go over to the DFS Doctors. Let them help you. They have analysts on staff that look at the best optimal lineup that you can put out there to win money. So why not take advantage? At the DFS Doctors, promo code Detroit Sports.
CBD is a game changer sweeping the nation. This hemp extract is the natural way to elevate your mood, eliminate aches and pains, reduce anxiety, and keep you sleeping all night long. It can even cut your workout recovery time in half. Get in the game today with 20% off all orders of CBD and lavender products from Lavender Lane, a lavender farm located right here in Milan, Michigan. Just go to lavenderlanemi.com today and enter coupon code Detroit for 20% off your entire order. Guys, look, these amazing products are infused with calming lavender to maximize their effectiveness, meaning your CBD items only take minutes to take effect, which is way quicker than those pills you were about to swallow. On top of it, they are perfect for men and women. Lavender Lane has lab-tested CBD creams, tinctures, and roll-ons that are perfect for any situation, even if you're on the go. Put your health back in your hands by heading over to lavenderlanemi.com and entering coupon code Detroit for 20% off your entire order of CBD and lavender products. What do you have to lose? Your satisfaction is guaranteed or your money back. So if you need lavender gifts for your loved ones or just looking for the natural way to ease your discomfort with CBD, go to lavenderlanemi.com and use coupon code Detroit to unlock these miraculous benefits of CBD and lavender. That's lavenderlanemi.com. And remember, use coupon code DETROIT for 20% off your CBD and lavender products from Michigan's own Lavender Lane.
Detroit is the greatest! Straight up light you on fire for a Coney dog right now.
Darren McCarty comes back with Neiman in front of him. McCarty draws. McCarty in. McCarty scores! He makes them a goal! Darren McCarty!
Stafford takes, throws, end zone, Calvin, touchdown, Detroit Lions!
Welcome in, everybody, to the latest edition of the Motor City Sports Rant. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, Jason Jarvie, on the telephone. This week, we are going to break it all down. Two Spartan supporters sitting here trying to figure out what the hell the Spartan brass management is trying to do with this coaching hire. Jason, this probably could not have gone any worse for Michigan State the last 7 days. This really is, my friend, the culmination of some piss-poor management at the highest levels, and now you're seeing it. Right now, as we speak, the Michigan State Spartans don't have a legitimate head football coach.
Yeah, it's definitely not good, but, it needed to happen some way, and maybe I'm just kind of numb to what's happened the past couple of years, or at least the last 2 years. But I mean, clearly, if you want to use the metaphor of taking a Band-Aid off, this is probably like the worst way to do it, because you not only ripped the Band-Aid off, you kind of tore the scab open and ripped some more skin off of yourself. So, I mean, it had to happen, but yeah, we're definitely not in a good spot right now.
As each day passes, to me, I'm getting more and more mad at Mark Dantonio. Now, you could look at it from a myriad of different angles, but at the end of the day, if you're a supporter of Michigan State and you're looking at this, how do you not be mad at Mark Dantonio? I mean, this is somebody that, in the last 4 years hasn't done enough to really move the situation forward after the program got to the college football playoff. It's just been on a downhill slide. And then you realize, okay, for whatever reason, we're going to talk about the rumors regarding Mark and maybe why he retired at this point in time. But if you're Mark Dantonio, for the greater good of the program, you have to know that if you retire after you get your bonus and you retire in February, it's going to put everything out of whack. You can't get a coach to come here and leave the school he's already at if you're going to leave in February and retire. By Mark Dantonio doing what he did, he put everything behind. It made it almost impossible to get Luke Fickell. It made it almost impossible to get Saleh. It made it impossible to really go out there and get a coach that could really do some things. So now we're going to talk about the rumors that we're hearing regarding Mark maybe being upset and maybe why, some information has come out that, maybe he's upset and maybe he could have done some sabotaging, and that's maybe why Luke Fickell eventually did not come to Michigan State. But you look at it, if you're the Michigan State brass and you're Bill Beekman and you're starting to hear, maybe Mark's on the fence, you could have maybe made an argument that they should have just let him go and relieved him of his duties, not paid him that bonus, and say, look, if you're not committed 100%, we need a coach here that's going to do the job, and you open it up. You don't let Mark leave on his own terms, because at the end of the day, there's bosses and there's workers. And I think right to start, the Michigan State administration just let Mark Dantonio really run roughshod over everything, and this is what's happened. When you put people that are below you in charge, they're going to look out for their best interests, and right now it's hard not to believe that Mark Dantonio just didn't take that money and then was really questioning whether he wanted to do this or not. Now, it's just a really bad look all the way around, regarding how Mark Dantonio handled this and the position that the Spartans are in. You got to look at Mark Dantonio and say, hey, you haven't done right by the university in your exit.
Yeah, and it's you can really only look at it two ways. It's either this is all on Dantonio, or this is all on the AD and the leadership from Michigan State. Because if you want to, if it's Dantonio, then he clearly was making it known that he's going to be back in 2020, and for all intents and purposes, everything that we knew, he was going to be there. So yeah, when the deadline came and passed for him to get his bonus, you're like, okay, I guess we got another year of Coach D. But for him then to come out and just kind of blindside people, that's the biggest thing for me that it does kind of hurt. But then on the other hand, if there were inklings, if he is in talks with the AD and everybody and saying, hey, I'm not really sure about coming back. You're saying you want more changes. I'm not really sure if I wanted it. If those conversations were happening in December and January before the bonus kicked in, that's on the AD. That's on them they should have realized that, even if he was going to come back for one more year, you know what? It's probably just better to get this done with, because all around, it's just a bad look. It's a bad look for Michigan State as a whole. It's a bad look on Mark Dantonio. It's a bad look on the athletic director.
And you have all these coaches that are coming out publicly and saying, I don't want to coach at Michigan State, especially when Mark Dantonio at his press conference, he stands there and he's like, people are going to come crawling to Michigan State. This is a great job, and people are going to want to come here. And then, the first 3-4 candidates that you reach out to say no. And then the biggest candidate, which for me, I'm not that upset about Luke Fickell not coming. I don't see him being big enough. I want to go to the top. I want to say, you know what? I'm okay with keeping Tressel as an interim and then buy out PJ Fleck for $4.5 million next year and bring him on board. I don't care about Mike Tressel. I don't care about all that. Dreaming?
You're dreaming on PJ Fleck.
Not happening, huh?
I mean, why would he? I hate it's clear, he has an easier pass in his division. Why would he come to Michigan State where he has to play Michigan State, Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State every single year when he can stay in the Big Ten West and dominate? You're playing. Yeah, you got to play Wisconsin. Sometimes Nebraska is going to be good. Iowa is always up and down. So, I mean, why would you come to Michigan State and just make your job harder?
Yeah, it's the Michigan State job is not as appealing as some would have you believe, and it's rock bottom. Today, as we speak, as we're recording this, it's rock bottom. It's all bad for the Spartan program, and
I don't know. I feel like this can get way worse. I mean, it feels like rock bottom, Just wait until what happens next year, though. Like that, we could be again here next year talking this same podcast and going, okay, this is rock bottom, because now we are literally at we're the basement dwellers of the Big Ten now. That's rock bottom. We're still a middling Big Ten team at the moment. And I'd like to think if they can get some semblance of a coach in here, they'll at least, we'll probably get 6-6 or 7-5, something close to that.
Man, it's so tough because, as Spartan supporters, to see Luke Fickell choose Cincinnati over the Spartans, to see Saleh choose the NFL, I know that he's going to be an NFL head coach.
Saleh, that guy who couldn't adapt in the Super Bowl?
Hey man, Kansas City is legendary. It's a passing league, and Mahomes is next level, and he was able to show it, man. It's super tough, and I think that potentially maybe that there was also some mistakes on the offensive side there for the 49ers in terms of strategy, because the defense basically did their job. The offense had the ball, couldn't secure 1 or 2 more first downs. That would have cleared up all the mess defensively. Saleh did a good job. But that was a huge mess in the Super Bowl. But I think he could have came into the college ranks if you wanted to pay him. But he knows he's going to live the good life as an NFL head coach real quick. So I don't blame him too much. But if you're Michigan State, right now the reputation is really, really bad. And the way in which they've handled things really speaks to a lack of leadership. It speaks to people that don't know what they're doing. I mean, the first step, and I know it's small, this is a small point, but Michigan State took their plane to Luke Fickell. That's not how it's supposed to go. In essence, if you were serious about a candidate, you say, Luke, look, bring your family here. We're going to show you everything we need to show you, and it's going to go down. You don't go there and then get rejected. You don't waste, a plane ride. You make Fickell come to you. And, Bill Beekman, when you look at it, everyone's saying that, okay, this guy's way overmatched, that you don't go there and you don't leave without the guy in hand. So it lends to some speculation that maybe, this isn't all the, administration's fault. That potentially that Mark Dantonio could be doing some sabotaging. Rico Beard, host of the Spartan Beat, he talked to his sources and he discovered and tweeted out that potentially Mark wanted to coach in 2020, but, the administration started to plan ahead, had the search firm in place, and there weren't assurances and guarantees made that Dantonio could indeed pick his replacement. So he got all upset. Mark Dantonio got frustrated with the administration and abruptly quits. So with that being said, the reason that maybe you start to hear that the culture, there's some issues at Michigan State, maybe Fickell contacts Dantonio and says, hey, okay, you're done. What's it all about? And Dantonio's like, look, this board of trustees is whack. I'm not getting what I need. This administration just puts everything into misery. They're not supportive. Do you see a scenario in which Mark Dantonio self-sabotaged this whole thing and just got all pissed off because he couldn't, choose his successor and felt disrespected? I mean, either way, Dantonio looks even worse if that's the case, because, if you do that, you just now prevented and blocked Luke Fickell from coming, and you now have a situation where recruits are being told, you have to understand that negative recruiting happens every single day. You got these coaches that are going to be like, oh man, that program's terrible. Nobody wants to be there. Coaches don't want to go there. You're getting recruited negatively every single day. So for Dantonio to self-sabotage and to tell Fickell bad things about Michigan State because he's angry, look, I respect Rico to the high heavens, but maybe there's some truth to it, but maybe not to that degree. I don't see a scenario in which Dantonio's all butthurt about not picking his success. His successor. The university just rewarded you. They gave you $4 million. You don't take that into account. You don't see that by doing that you set forth the path for the Spartans to suck for the next decade if you don't get the right coach. This is big time sports. I just can't see Mark Dantonio being that butthurt about the university.
Yeah, I have a hard time believing that. I think that's very elaborate for him to go out and say all that stuff about Michigan State, because Michigan State has done a lot for Mark Dantonio. I mean, they've made him the coach that he is today. I don't see him doing that. I really, honestly, I see it more as, it really came down to Mark wanted to stay in his to quote him, he wanted to stay in his foxhole with his guys, and he wanted to dig out of whatever he's done, or this hole that he's in. And I think we don't Beekman, maybe he's going to be up and coming, but he's a very new athletic director. And it would be one thing if we still had, a guy like Mark Hollis, somebody who was experienced, or just a more experienced athletic director who knew how to handle something like this. Maybe we would have gotten out of this better on the other side, but we're stuck in it right now. And I mean, unless, barring, some crazy hire, it's going to be rough for a couple of years, because unless they're only going to bring in a guy for 1 year, I have a hard time seeing what they're going to do. We're probably going to be stuck with a coach for at least 3 years.
Yeah. Do you take stock in the players kind of rallying around former coach Harlan Barnett? Because all the names that have come out are underwhelming. Tressel, Harlan Barnett, these names that you're hearing, Dan Bilesma. Come on now. Look, he had success at Wisconsin a decade ago. He flamed out at Arkansas and has been toiling around as an assistant in the NFL. That guy's not going to come here and defeat Jim Harbaugh and Ryan Day. I felt like, if the best case scenario was going to happen based on the fact that Dantonio was going to retire, you probably were going to need to have Luke Fickell. You had to have him in place because this was a guy that was part of Ohio State, was someone that understands Ohio and recruiting, had some success now, 11-win seasons at Cincinnati. You had to make him an offer he couldn't refuse. You had to get him. Despite what, people were saying, I'm also thinking too, Jason, that at the end of the day, when you look at contracts, when you look at situations, yeah, we're hearing reports of maybe him being guaranteed this much money, but at the end of the day, I think that they lowballed him. I think maybe they offered him $4 million. He was making 2.4. That maybe Bill Beekman went there and said, okay, we'll give you 4.1, max 4.2. And he looked at it and said, that's not good enough. That for me to leave Ohio, where I've been, you're going to have to give me assurances. I want maybe years and dollars and control and this. And if that's the case, you should have just said yes. Okay, I'll get you this. I'll get you that. I'll get you whatever you need. That gets the job done. You can't tell me that dollars, control, laying it out there several years, 6-year deal, $5.5 million, over $30 million guaranteed, would not have gotten the job done. So Bill Beekman, at the highest level, I felt like did not do enough to lure Luke Fickell. And, I know you can debate whether Fickell's the guy or not, but he garnered some respect. And now the names that you're hearing as backups, we're talking about Chris Creighton, Jim McElwain, all the names, like you said, sound terrible and don't give anybody hope. It just sounds like, we're about to approach Rutgers, Maryland level, and we're going to approach it real quick. And as a Spartan supporter, I hate to see it. I hate seeing this whole situation take place this way, because decent leadership, not even above average leadership, decent leadership can steer this another way in terms of, organizing the board of trustees, organizing the search firms, organizing everything together to make this go a lot better. This was handled probably, if you said, tell me 4 or 5 ways where this can go bad, the Spartans went above and beyond the worst possible way to go about this. In every facet, they've done wrong. It's mind-boggling to look at this story, Jason, and seeing it going, wow, you have a head coach that's, mulling retirement for weeks. What we heard is Bill Beekman talked to Dantonio for weeks. You let this guy, Mark Dantonio, granted he had all this success, you let him basically run this, and when, the inmates run the asylum, this is what happens, and it's bad on every level. I just thought that me personally, why I'm so bummed out, I just thought that once Dantonio announced it, it was in the bag. Okay, they got Luke Fickell. We got to, start the process of seeing what he's going to do, who are his coaches going to be. I thought it was a done deal. For it not to be a done deal, awful, embarrassing. It's one of the worst times probably for Michigan State athletics.
At this point now, because it doesn't sound like there's really any candidate out there that we're going to go out and we're going to poach somebody. We're not going to get somebody who's going to be, blow us out of the water. I mean, isn't it probably the best for right now? Stick with one of the guys that we have, because if we're going to be bad, stick with one of the guys that you have, because then it's easier to cut ties with that person, because we already don't want him here. Why go out and hire, take Chris Creighton or hire one of the other guys that are out there? Just let them stay where they are. You'll hire Mike Tressel, let him run the coach. Really, how much worse can it get? Honestly, I don't know how much worse it can get, if it's Jim Dressel, because it's going to be a lot more of the same. Maybe we get a little bit better on offense. I don't know. Maybe it really was Mark Dantonio. But I think at this point, it's almost a wash to go out and get a brand new coach, because I'd rather stick with what we got now. And basically any success we have is gravy. And then, start the process over either next year or the year after that. And so at the end of the year, that's when you can finally actually do the process of finding that head coach, because right now they're all gone. You lost out on that because D'Antonio, he had an old timers moment and couldn't figure out when he wanted to retire.
Exactly. By chance, did you hear the news about what Board of Trustee member Brian Masalam said earlier on Tuesday on the radio? Did you hear that?
Oh, I did, but I don't know. Maybe we should tell the listeners.
Yes. So Brian Masalam is a Board of Trustee member, and the Board of Trustees has been taking heat now for the better part of decades regarding their practices, their meddling in terms of their agendas, trying to get coaches approved and, making things difficult for ADs. So Brian Masalam now is somebody that was a former football player on the team, got elected to the Board of Trustees, and now he started to talk on the radio. Last week, he was on the 97.1 The Ticket talking about the process. Earlier on early Tuesday morning, he's on the radio and he's talking. And like typical good hosts will do, the host asks, hey, did Luke Fickell kind of, did you guys go out there and tell us your feelings about the failed process of acquiring Luke Fickell? And he comes out and he says, look, I want to be diplomatic about this. But then he comes in and does a about face and he's like, we got to move forward. We don't want a waffling flake that wants to use Michigan State as a stop, to coach here. And that sent reverberations all around the internet. Everybody wrote about it. Now, I understand his point of view, but he's speaking emotionally. He's speaking in terms of really, it was really fascinating to see a guy speak like a fanboy. We're Michigan State and we don't want a waffling flake. Well, you can't say that. You're an administrator. You're somebody that, is going to be on the board that sits there and approves the coach. You don't think that every coach in America heard that or read that, or Luke Fickell doesn't take great offense to somebody at Michigan State calling him a waffling flake? Come on now. Luke Fickell made the right choice. If you line it up, Cincinnati right now is better than Michigan State. You're going to have a better roster. You better recruiting, 11 wins. You're probably 1 or 2 more years away, if Ryan Day goes to the NFL, from jumping back to Ohio State for round 2. So you're telling me that you're going to drop a bomb like that and make yourself look that idiotic? You can't do that. Now, of course, we all think it, but you don't go out there publicly and say it. Eventually you realize that Michigan State's leadership doesn't understand public relations, doesn't understand how this works. Really, for all this to go down the way it took place, that's why I tweeted on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast, this demonstrates that Michigan State lacks leadership. It demonstrates that Michigan State has no clue. There should be no interviews being conducted by anybody regarding the football search. Go out there, find the coach, and get somebody that's going to coach this football team and turn this around. Let's not go on the radio and blast coaches, because guess what? Now you've probably alienated a certain section of coaches that maybe want to come here in a year from now or 2 years from now. And if Mark Dantonio went and told Fickell, hey, look, this board is ridiculous and they have these antics that they pull, you just went and validated it. You went and validated the administration's tough to work with and that they have no idea how to handle themselves in big-time moments. It was really bad. It was an embarrassing moment, one in which I can understand being that the Board of Trustees is getting hammered daily, but I think it was stupid for Masalam to take the text message and to get on the radio. Just focus on, waiting for someone to present a name in front of you where you can say yes or no, period. Don't go on the radio station and blast a head coach that turned you down when, at the end of the day, the Spartans deserve to be turned down. They're in a bad spot, and they're not an attractive job. They're nuclear, and that's the last thing you want to be, is viewed as nuclear.
It just leads me more to believe that they're going to stick with somebody who's still there. And, I mean, really, there's what? You really want Chris Creighton to come in here and be the Spartans head coach? I mean, he can't succeed at Eastern Michigan. He doesn't deserve to come here. Plus, the dude's old. Why would you want somebody? What we've wanted for years is we want some new and upcoming coach. So, like a PJ Fleck, to come in and reinvigorate this. I mean, it's a franchise, but we don't have that, and that opportunity isn't going to happen this year. So it really feels like they're gearing up to just kind of go with a lame duck hire, and then kind of see what happens next year.
Oh, you said it, lame duck. Mike Tressel, exactly. You can't call him an interim because of the fact that if you do, then recruits are going to be like, oh, I'm not going to go to an interim coach now. I'm not going to sign there. I'm not going to work with that. It's bad all the way around from top to bottom. And then the best part is Luke Fickell comes out and is like, yeah, I want to stay here and things like that. And then reports are that his wife doesn't like the culture. So it's like a double whammy for Michigan State that the whole culture is still being talked about. They haven't done enough to fix that. So where's this coming from? Where is this notion coming from that Michigan State's culture still is terrible? They haven't done enough work to fix it. It's awful to, look here as a fan, as a supporter, and realize we got to turn our attention away from football because it's going to be a mess. And you realize college basketball hasn't been as fun this year because of the losses mounting, and the hype that was surrounding the basketball team hasn't kind of lived up to fruition as the team struggles. So Michigan State athletics, as you and I talk today, is at a really down spot. And Jason, football drives everything. Enrollment, excitement, donations. It killed me to see Michigan State take on Maryland and the stadium's empty. It killed me to see Michigan State and Mark Dantonio, the most decorated coach that the program has ever had, just kind of walk away meekly, and to play a shitty team in a bowl game that meant nothing outdoors in the middle of December when, the big-time bowls are in nice locations. The Spartans playing at New York Stadium or Yankee Stadium, come on now. It was really unbefitting of Mark Dantonio to leave that way. It really does. It just goes to show you that at the highest levels, if you don't got your ducks in a row, things can go bad to worse to awful. And when you start talking about public perception, Michigan State, now, there was talk of the Spartans and the culture and things like that. Now that's all resurfaced again, and they've taken 8 steps backwards in the game of public relations. And I'm shocked, really shocked, that at the level of leadership that Michigan State demonstrated, still to this day, no growth in the area of leadership, public relations, figuring out how to solve things. It really just appears like they just show up every day and whatever the hell they want to do, they do, irregardless of any of the consequences. I mean, Jason, Mike Tressel, come on now, that's the worst option. Literally, they should have forced Antonio to blow out his entire staff last year, and they didn't do it. So it works out that if Tressel's the guy, I still don't see a scenario in which they get 7 wins next year.
I mean, I'm freely admitting that there is no way. I mean, unless we have some gems on this roster, which, I mean, it's happened before where hey, some people come out of nowhere. I mean, and we've seen it on Michigan State before, but yeah, I admit we're not going to win more than 7 games. I mean, but what I'm saying is give Mike Tressel a 3-year deal. And if a name comes out next year, I think that's the better option. And I think in the long run, fans will like that better too, because I feel like if you go out and you hire one of those new coaches right now, you give them a 3 or a 5-year deal. It's basically an expectation at that point that they are going to be there for at least 2 to 3 years. I think if you give Tressel a 3-year deal, I mean, he's had his hands on this team, and he's had his hands on this roster. So I don't think it affects recruiting that much. Maybe you lose a little bit, but I mean, it's essentially the same. It's the same coaches. And if you do want to move on from him, I think that option is there next year. So this is, in the long term, I think this is the best option for Michigan State. Hire one of those guys that you have right now on staff, because then it will be easier for you to move on in a year or 2 years.
A great coach said pride comes before the fall, and unfortunately, pride has come before the fall. Michigan State is in flux. It's been a disastrous week. You and I wrapped it up and talked about it. It felt better talking to you about it, but as we sit here, we just got to take the medicine and hope that the administrators wake up and figure out what the hell to do, because they've had the worst week and have dragged the program, the athletic department at Michigan State through the mud. Jason, I've enjoyed the conversation. Our time has come to an end. I appreciate you, my friend, and thanks for being a part of another great broadcast episode here on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
No problem, man. I'll talk to you later.
Follow Jason on Twitter at Jarvie the King. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. Tune in to further episodes of the Motor City Sports Rant Tuesdays, wherever your favorite podcast is located. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, nice, idiot. You. Bye-bye.
Toodaloo, motherfucker.
Good day, sir. I said good day.
All right. Take care now. Bye-bye then.
Loser.